Hello, welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host Rob. I'm joined by the Twitch chat every Monday, 11 a.m. till sometime, where we look at the event results from around the world for the Age of Sigmar tournament scene, and we've got some really great news to start the show off. There's the Twitch chat shout out. Please do like and subscribe and all that other stuff. This top of the hour, top of the show. Ask yourselves the question: do you think there are more or less Age of Sigmar events than this time last year? And do you think that there are more or less players than this time last year? And the answer is pretty shocking. There were, let me just get this right, let me get my notes up. There were 19 events last year. This time last year, by the time we tracked the results, 19 events this time last year with 800 players registered. This year, there are 58 events tracked with nearly 2,000 players. Nearly 2,000 players. So it's effectively doubled over the course of a year. Maybe even a little bit more, which is pretty amazing. So, if you're excited about Age of Sigmar, if you're new to Age of Sigmar, or if you're just like really looking forward to going to events, it seems like there's a growing community of brand new people who go to events, and it's super popular, which is great. I think it's a really great game. I think people are having loads of fun. I just ran an event this weekend. We had a couple of people who haven't been to many events. We had some real veterans who've been to many events, and the mix was amazing because every time one of those people gets involved, you're super excited, and the community really welcomes you in. And tournaments are really good fun, even if you aren't trying to win the event and you're just going there to play some tough games and really understand how the game works. It's the best environment to do so. So absolutely fantastic news. That the Age of Sigmar tournament scene has in fact doubled. Rob Kelly in the chat making, I think, a really fair point that, of course, some of the places last year weren't able to actually play because there were restrictions or lockdowns in place in certain places around the world. And I think quite rightly so, a lot of people are still really worried about going out and attending larger or just several events. However, the number of events has definitely increased, and because I've done the Stat Center for nearly 4 years now, I can promise you that the quantity of events has greatly increased, as has the player base. Sometimes it used to be there would just be the big event every month or so, and it would be some point in the world, and now they're just big events all the time. So it's great news. The game is growing, the community is growing, and it's just absolutely fantastic news for us as a community. So love that. Fantastic. We're going to start the show off today by looking through the stats. The Twitch chat are going to help me. Now, YouTube commentators or commenters or other people. Number one, it's pronounced Vallejo. Number two, importantly, I understand we've did a graphic update on the stats, and so they don't present really well on the screen right now. We're in talks with the designer to change it back so it's different. Yeah, okay, I understand. Right now, you can go on the website and look at it yourself. I'm sorry that it just looks like lines, but I promise we'll try and have the font changed for the future. Okay? There we go. Fair point. Thanks for leaving the comment. Like and subscribe. Right, okay, so we're going to look at the stats. Now, these are all of the stats for specifically this version of Age of Sigmar 3. So this is what we call Age of Sigmar 3.3. That's the version of Age of Sigmar that we are in. So Age of Sigmar 3.3. That's how I, the stats people, but also generally you as the public, can keep track of where we are in the game. This means ever since the Galette Battle Pack, or Galette, if you or French, enchanté, galet. If you ever since that battle pack was released, so basically everything that's happened over the past, I think it's 2 months, might be 2.5 months at this point, basically. So ever since the GHB effectively changed it. Now, what's interesting is we know that the beginning of the next month, we think, or sometime towards the end of this month, we'll have our 3-month balance update, the battle scroll, which we're going to talk about later on the Monday show about like what we expect to be or not be in the battle scroll. So effectively balance updates, but just quick kind of like high level looks. I assume they're going to do something about Purple Sun. I actually think it's quite good for the game. There was a time when god monsters were a major issue, and ultimately I quite like that troops are really resistant to it in a battle pack where also troops are kind of in a really interesting place with Galician veterans and also bounty hunters and unmatched conquerors and proving grounds and a bunch of other really interesting elements on the game, in the game, and on the game, and on the table, and in the table, and around the table. It's really interesting kind of like meta at the moment with so many moving parts, which I think makes the game really exciting. And so Purple Sun, I think, is a really good inclusion. However, some people are going to be triggered by it as soon as I've said that so they're going to say get rid of it. Similarly, I expect maybe, like, not under the table, though. Never under the table. We're an over-the-table show. Yeah, nothing under the table. Not behind the table, chat. Fuck off. Right, so the other, just demonetized it. Oh, nightmare. Right, okay. Anyway, the point is, and I also expect something to be done about the Incarnate. I expect a points increase probably for the Incarnate. Maybe, maybe not. Have they sold enough yet? Who knows? We'll see. Don't forget you can buy 3D print versions from Etsy for like £15. So always important to remember that you can play the game however you like. Okay, so let's look at the... so I would like to know what your predictions are. Chat, your opportunity to do your predictions. If you listen to us as a podcast, maybe just wind your window down if you're in the car and just shout your predictions out. Talk to your person who you're driving with. I don't know, if you listen to this as a podcast at home, maybe just, shout over to your partner, ask your kids what they think. What's your predictions on what the battle scroll might be? Leave them in the comments below, and any of those things. Right, if you say, I agree, Dave, I agree. Right, okay, so let's look at the actual stats. So we've got 43 tournaments in the tank with 7,608 faction results and 3,804 matches. What does it look like? Ladies and gentlemen, it looks really, really good. Really good. This is the healthiest and best I've seen the game be when it comes to from a clear numbers perspective, right? There are loads of other elements to talk about, and everything that we see here doesn't express the difference between... This obviously is talking about external balance, and there's nothing really showing internal balance. So that's like, are all units taken equally all the time? And of course the answer is not there. And actually we do have some data on that, which I'll be talking about next week in your most chosen units that you see in the game. Okay, but from a balance perspective, it looks great. With only 3 factions going over our 55% win rate category, and this is huge. Normally, or last season even, and go back and look at some of the older stat shows, you'll see a bunch of armies over the 60% win rate mark. Right now, there are only 3 factions sat at 56% win rate. That's Sons of Behemoth, Maggotkin of Nurgle, and Seraphon. And that's just 1% over where we want Games Workshop to have them. So massive shout outs to Games Workshop on this. Yeah, I'll be mean to them when I think they deserve someone being mean to them, but I'll also shout out when I think that the game designers are doing a great job. Especially when there's some really interesting elements. Like Seraphon example, we knew that salamanders were too good in the last version of Age of Sigmar, and so you actually got bonus extra points for killing them. In this version of Age of Sigmar, that just went away, and so you just ended up with like people taking salamanders again. Same with things like Fulminators. However, they don't seem to have necessarily upticked. Am I a joke to you, Rob? No, you're not a joke to me. Hello, chat. Right, so Seraphon, Maggotkin of Nurgle, and Sons of Behemoth at 56% win rate. And I'm absolutely not surprised to see the return of Sons of Behemoth. New book coming soon, but easily one of the easiest factions to do really well with a very high positive win rate potential. And we'll talk about like meta representation in a minute. So Maggotkin, I actually think, this commentator's opinion, I think Maggotkin is the best army in the game at the moment, specifically the fly build. I think it plays so well into how you want to play the game. Tempo-wise, you want to put as many units in your opponent's deployment, turns 1, 2, especially because of those 2 really easy-to-achieve battle tactics, which are barge to enemy lines. If you can do it with Galician Veterans, you get that bonus point. And the game currently is so razor-thin on when you can score additional points, or if you drop a battle tactic, probably you're going to lose the game. So being able to get those, plus desecrate their lands, which is hold a terrain piece wholly or partially within your opponent's territory, those 2 are so effective for armies that want to go forward really aggressively. Sons of Behemoth, Maggotkin, and Nurgle. Seraphon is different. Seraphon is just a really broken book with so many overlapping abilities that just shouldn't exist. That's why they're at a 56% win rate, because they're a castle build, very much like Lumineth would play, but they just are just incredibly offensive. So that's how that works. But yeah, so those are the 2 armies that are doing well, and I'm not surprised. And then if to follow on that theme, Bone Splitters are an army that's on a 55% win rate. I think at this point we can say that feels fairly valid. They've got enough results that I feel that I can call that as being they're in a good spot, which is pretty crazy. 17 tournaments, 54 matches. That does tend to be pretty much the same group of people. A lot of those event results come out from the US. However, there has been the same army played at different results in the UK and in Europe as well. So we've kind of got cross-pollination. So it's not just a person doing well as a good example. Sometimes you get an army doing well just because one person's doing well with it, and they tend to attend loads of events. So I think that seems fine. Happy morning, Faces and Bases. Then you've got Beasts of Chaos, just really good. 4-up rally, who knew? Disciples of Tzeentch, really interesting kind of army. They're at 52%, along with Nighthaunt and Kharadron Overlords. Now, those are just fine. I know a lot of people feel like Nighthaunt are a real difficult army to deal with. They're like, I don't know how to beat it. But as you can see, they've been beaten plenty. They've only got a 52% win rate. Again, I can't express enough how great this looks. How wonderful this looks. There are definitely problem armies and armies that do better than some armies. And Nighthaunt's also got a really high meta percentage, especially because it's one of those things that you got free in the kind of magazine Mortal Empires, and it was a starter box army, which generally tends to, in my opinion, drop a couple of percentage points in the skill cap of it being played at tournaments. However, I still don't see it as being incredibly dangerous because they're not even near a 60% win rate. We've had 60% win rates a lot. We don't have that here, and they're at 52, so they're super okay. Toby in the chat, Tzeentch is just some guys fearing the new book will be shit and get their toys out before showing them. Black Toby, I kind of agree. Being one of those people who's also done the same, but I also think it's got a lot of really useful tools in a magic dominant meta as well as an anti-magic meta. I think Tzeentch can do quite nicely. A lot of the armies that are looking to play, Sylvaneth, a good example, looking to cast a bunch of spells to be more effective. Daughters of Khaine, I guess, trying to cast some spells to be effective. Beasts of Chaos, maybe, probably not. Seraphon definitely looking to cast spells, and they can code toe for them. Maggotkin not looking to do spells. That's kind of one of the interesting elements as well. Seraphon got a dominant magic phase, and really difficult to shut them down, and they're great anti-magic. Suns don't care about magic, and Maggotkin and Nurgle also don't care about magic. Whereas, I think Nighthaunt may be looking to do a couple of spells, especially that 5-up ward save, if they can get that off on a unit, making them even more survivable with a 4-up unrenderable 5-up ward. And so Tzeentch playing in there seems to make a lot of sense. Aren't all Tzeentch lists just taking an Incarnate? I would agree that the Incarnate feels like a really key piece in the Tzeentch army that the Tzeentch army previously didn't have. Never really had a combat block. So I think that's actually a really useful piece for them. Greg in the chat says, I think the problem with Nighthaunt and why people moan about them is they feel quite rock, paper, scissors. You can deal with them or just get smashed. Could be wrong, that's just my feeling. I kind of agree with Greg as well, especially when they've got a Cruel Gas Cruciator, which reduces the damage that a unit might take down by 1 to a minimum of 1, but you can stack that. So you can have the most offensive unit in the game, so you can pay loads and loads of points to have a really, really powerful unit, and then your opponent can just reduce your damage down by 1, save all of the saves on a 4-up because they have a 4-up unrenderable on some of the units, and then they can have a 5-up ward on top of it, and then they can return 3 slain models back to that unit at the end of the combat phase as well. So there's some real kind of almost anti-thinking. So it feels at odds with what you've done. Your points don't really relate to effectiveness, which is what the Nighthaunt army does. So I can definitely see why it feels problematic. Absolutely. I think it's also one of those armies where you really have to reposition your thoughts. We've talked about DPS checks army before, where there's just a lot of wounds or they're very defensive, so you've got to wonder, how do I do the 24 damage I need to do to 2 flies to kill it? How do I do the 35 wounds to a Gargan? And now really what Nighthaunt armies are asking is how do you do? You're going to need to do something 60 to 80 wounds, after you've rolled to hit and to wound into a Nighthaunt army unit, especially 30 Bladegeist Revenants with a 5-up ward to guarantee to kill it. That's a lot. You're asking a lot. So a weight of dice attacks. So Witch Elves, maybe that's why we're seeing them be more popular. Sisters of Slaughter, maybe that's why we're seeing those be more popular as well. I'm going to take a breath. I was so serious there for a minute. Let's take a quick moment. hold on. Hold on. Like, I don't think there's any right answers a lot of the time. A lot of this is just discussions. I've just been at an Age of Sigmar event at the weekend. I walked away, had dinner with three great people, Luke, Matt, and Owen, and we just talked Sylvaneth lists. Like, why does Sylvaneth never 5-0, apart from one time? Like, what's going on? What do they play? What are they doing wrong? You know, like, and it's not necessarily like the book's bad, yeah, because it's not. But, like, as you can see, Sylvaneth are on a 48% win rate. Brand new book. They're not top tier. But there's something going on there. There's something to think through, and that's really exciting. It's really exciting to talk about. Yeah, when you have units with low attacks but high rend, it feels bad for rend to just not matter. I agree. Okay, so let's go talk about Kharadron Overlords. 52% win rate. They've had nothing really new in the game apart from there's an Incarnate in there, and they've got a Purple Sun. They've always struggled as an army. They definitely can deal damage at range. They struggle if they get doubled into, especially by a melee army, because they get hit, wounded, smashed up. What they're looking to do, though, is they're looking to just shoot you and then run away. This is terrible for an objective-based game because they want to stand on an objective. So, but now they've got an Incarnate who can go fight on objectives, counts on a monster, and counts as 5. They've also got the Purple Sun, which they can go drop in their opponent's army, so you can deep strike or alpha strike with the big bow or any of those things, and drop using spell in a bottle, drop a Purple Sun into your opponent's army. Why that's great is because you don't even need to kill anything, but what it does is it means it reduces their save by 1, and that's huge because that takes all of the guns that they have up to basically Ren 2, and this makes them far more punchy. Right now Ren 1 is very swingy. Very, very swingy, especially because you've got all-out defense. You've got like a really good unit, but it's only got Rend 1. Effectively, your opponent can just be like, cool, I'm going to all-out defense, and now I just neuter your Rend completely, and that changes the maths pretty significantly, I think. Yeah, all our Ren 1 sucks. Purple Sun helps a lot. So I think that's why you're seeing Kharadron Overlords be super happy with that. Daughters of Khaine, a 51% win rate. That's actually really interesting, Daughters of Khaine, because I think, again, they're a very effective army. I think what we're seeing, if I can be like a little impertinent on a Monday morning, is a bunch of people trying to do combat armies with Daughters of Khaine, and we've seen it fairly successfully. Like Jeffrey, who's currently in the chat, did really well recently with more Witch Elf based list, especially using the high Gladiatrix, so you can effectively have Witch Elf blocks on 2s and 2s with a bunch of attacks. And we're seeing that do quite well at several events. So we've seen that more than once, which is great. Like, really, really good. But Daughters of Khaine sat on a 51% win rate really tells me that they're not leaning into what is super strong still, which is Morathi in the bow stakes. I don't think that build is any worse than it once was, my personal opinion. Once somebody finds this that stands out and fight, runaways, yeah. Okay, so then we've got Fire Slayers. Now, Fire Slayers are in an interesting place as well, 51%. Doing better than I thought that they were going to do. But actually, based on my conversation just from this weekend, Fire Slayers are a mid-board army. What I mean by that is they move into the mid-board quite aggressively, and that's where you have to fight them. It's actually quite good, really, when you're thinking about battle tactics and when you're just thinking about battle plans anyway. Ultimately, they're fighting on objectives, and if you can't push them off, and they are very tanky and very fighty, then they're going to hold the objective, and they're going to score points. And they score points, they've got a shot of winning. Like, it's that simple. Like, it's all easy to say over the course of 5 turns, you table the Fire Slayer army, but it's very tough to be like, I beat that unit up enough that I can grab the objective, right? There's also, as been pointed out in the chat, like Magmadroth lists, which are doing okay across the board. Like, some are doing great, some are doing okay. There's normally a mixture, though. When I read the 4-1 results, it's normally either Magmadroth or it's a bunch of Hearthguard Berserkers. And actually, the mixture between the two is pretty exciting, to be honest. So, great work for Fire Slayers. Really happy for them, actually, because I really wasn't expecting them to be up here. Now, the one that's kind of interesting to me is Idoneth Deepkin, 50% win rate. 50% win rate, and that's great, because that's just middle of the pack. That's exactly what you want to be. It's not too good, it's not too bad. It's really great. Interesting thing about Idoneth, for me personally, is, again, it's not like a very aggro, like in your territory army, like you would see Suns, or you would see maybe Flies from Magakin and Nurgle play. And because of that, they're fairly standoffish. On the first few turns, you don't generally tend to see like Idoneth Deepkin alphas, unless you're talking maybe a bunch of Reavers or something with an Incarnate, and they do a bunch of shooting. But I think even that way lies disaster, because as soon as they get hit, they fall over. So, and I know there's loads of people who've been trying to push Deepkin around like really well. So Deepkin has come out as kind of a surprising army, like as in they're not around a 60% win rate, they're sat at a 50, and I think that that's disaster. Yeah, complete disaster. Yeah, that's what it is. So, like, actually quite surprised by that, and actually excited to see that because I was saying this again to the weekend. I was saying to Hazel, who's playing Deepkin, I was saying that I feel like there's one of those armies that they need one extra unit, but I feel that one additional unit would make them maybe a bit too good. I'm not really sure. It's also got a really small roster, so it's really difficult to pick out exactly the units that you want for exactly the roles that you need, which I think is kind of interesting. Whereas, if we look at Nurgle, they've got a great opportunity to just use Nurglings, like a really cheap, chaffy piece to do something with, while bigger pieces go and run away. So I think that's quite interesting. Hello, Horsies. Thanks for resubscribing for the Syndicate. Let's go. Blades of Corn, 47% win rate. What a glow up. What an absolute glow up. Had a little bit of change with their Blood Tithe, which I think is quite nice. We've also seen a reduction in how much shooting there is in the game. So I think there is still a lot of shooting, of course, but like Nighthaunt being 7% of the meta, Maggotkin being in there as well, they're all fighting armies, and that really gives Blades of Corn an opportunity to fight really well. They had Blood Tithe update, which seems quite good for them as well. Almost all of these lists feature Scarbrand. Scarbrand is carrying the entire Khorne faction upon his meaty shoulders, and it's a fighting counter-punch army. So effectively what it does is it wants to fight you in the mid-board, and then it wants to like position Scarbrand in so he just fights a billion times and does loads of damage. That's what he does. Skaven, 47% win rate. Not surprised to see that. I doubt that gets any higher, and I think I'll continue to see that get lower. As well. It's just an old book that's got some slightly new tricks, but other than that, it's I think it falls by the wayside, especially because it's a good caster, but not necessarily a great anti-caster in some ways. And if it is, it's on like very specific characters who then you're building around it, which is a huge problem. I feel really down on Skaven at the minute, but that's because I feel like they really got the copy-paste kind of like book, which Doors got, but Doors were like, cool, my book was already fine. Like, I'm very happy with that. What a list looking like? I don't see them very often in the 4-1 bracket. I see some Stormfiend lists, sometimes I see some Vermin Lords, but I generally don't tend to see them, and so I don't really... funny people screamed for 2 years to nerf shooting. It finally happened. Look at the win rates now. I know, right? Look at it, right? Age of Sigmar, 47% win rate, which I think is a real positive. That's, again, good place for it to be. Living City got nerfed pretty aggressively. We're seeing Hallowheart lists as well, which is really fun. Stormcast Eternals on a 46% win rate. I think that's a little bit unrepresentative of how good they are. I think Stormcast, like if you take out like a lot of people who are just playing their first Stormcast army at an event and a bunch of other stuff, I think they generally sit higher, like 50 to 52% win rate, generally because I think there's some really good builds at the minute. We're seeing Dragon builds do really well. We're seeing the AoE Mortal Bomb, Slan, Incarnate, Slan, Celestant Prime, and even a dragon. Well, what the hell are they even called anymore? Lord Celestial Stardrake, a Stardrake in conjunction with it. So doing and all of that in conjunction with the Comet, the Endless Spell, the Everblaze Comet. So doing a bunch of mortal wounds in airway is what we're seeing in a minute. So Stormcast Eternals, and they've got like a bunch of different fun builds you can do as well. Like ultimately, I think they're good. I think they're a really good book, and 46% isn't bad. Saves to Darkness, 46%. Saves to Darkness is an interesting one. Like we're seeing a bunch of Knights of the Empty Throne list do really well in Germany and England. I don't think we've necessarily seen any come out of the US yet. But yeah, they've been doing really well as well. I think I also saw one in Sweden. So Slaves to Darkness, Knights of the Empty Throne with those Varangard seem to be doing really quite nicely. Again, moving into a fighting meta, or generally into an anti-magic meta because they're marked Mark of Tzeentch, so they can ignore spells twice, which I think is really strong, and with a 3-up armor save rerun at once. Great work. Lumineth Realm Lords, 46% win rate. They can be higher. They can be really higher. Again, kind of like what we were talking about with Sylvaneth. Sylvaneth, 3 armies play the same. Seraphon, Sylvaneth, and Lumineth Realmlords. They all project power at range from a castle at the back of the board. However, I don't think necessarily Sylvaneth should play that way. Lumineth Realmlords do play that way, and then they unpack, and it's really on their opponent to kind of fall for that, which I think is kind of interesting. But we'll see what happens with their new book, and Seraphon do it and are also broken. Ironjawz, 46% win rate. Good, honest, old Ironjawz. Still think it's a great book. I would put Ironjawz on the table tomorrow and hope to go 4-1 or 5-0 at an event. Don't think they've got any problems. Just make sure you put them in a 1-drop. Then you really can control the board state. Pigs, obviously, not brutes. Legion of the First Prince, 45% win rate. Feels fair. It's kind of like at this stage, like a gimmicky one-trick book. Maybe could do with having something redone to it, but with a new Slaves to Darkness book out in the future, which definitely is... oh no, what's his name? What is he? The Enlightened Centrist. What's his name? What is that fella's name? The god of medium takes. Oh, Be'lakor. It's like one of the absolutely best units to put in the game right now, especially against kind of like big Death Star blocks if they exist. But normally you would put them in your Slaves to Darkness armies, or even in any army really. Be'lakor's great. Like if you could put Be'lakor in, you should. There sure are a lot of factions. There are. Heat Knights of Sinesh, 45% win rate. I mean, just scraping the barrel, but they're in. Blitzbarb Archers, Incarnate, doing a lot of work. Soulblight Gravelords are below the line, and I think there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, probably the best way for them to do a bunch of damage in the old build would have been using Van Hell's Dance Macabre, and a bunch of zombies were kind of their go-to trick, or maybe even Graveguard. The problem is all of those are Galician veterans, so bounty hunter units are smashing into them, right? However, I absolutely feel that there's some very strong Soulblight Gravelords lists at the minute, specifically centering around using Blood Knights. We've seen Neferata and Blood Knights do really well several times. Neferata can make it so that you can't worsen the armor save of a unit, but you can add to an armor save of a unit. So you could very easily Mystic Shield a unit of 10 Blood Knights, which is 30 wounds, and give them a 2-up unrendable save, which is pretty amazing in a combo. Also in Legion of Blood, especially in conjunction with the Horrorghast, you've got the ability to make a load of units run away. You can't get pinned in because you can retreat with the Blood Knights, which is quite nice unless you're fighting an Incarnate. So ultimately, I think like it's more of the army that people built isn't as good in this version, but there is an army in Soulblight Gravelords that is good. Flesh Eater Courts have done well. They're on a 42% win rate, but we've seen some people, shout out to Carl, Bees Up, Seas Down. Carl over in Canada doing really well with Flesh Eater Courts, big units of 9 Flayers, so people have been running them all over. And then, Flesh Eater Courts do have some builds that have done well. OCR Bone Reapers, a 40% win rate, but they do have some builds that have done well, specifically Swaggy Shadow Sword and a couple of other people. Cruel Boys, 39%. They are not good. I'm not like even entertaining for every person ever. It's just they're not good. So just live with it. I don't care. And if you win, it's because the people you played were rubbish. Like that's a flag in the ground. It's a hill I'll die on. Right? End convo. But what about Gobsprat? Shut up. And then Gloomsprat gets 37%. Right? Like they are the Skaven book without an update, more poorly balanced and written badly. So that's that. Let's just quickly look at the meta representation. Most popular armies, Stormcast still 9%, but that's down from like 12 or 13% at one point. So they're going to keep dropping, and that'll probably happen over the course of the edition unless they get a new book. That's been the trend in second edition as well. Sylvaneth and Nighthaunt at 7% of the meta. Sylvaneth being at 7% of the meta and Nighthaunt being at 7% of the meta are actually really, really interesting because Nighthaunt have posted a few 5-0s. Sylvaneth have posted one 5-0. So there's a real glass ceiling 4-1 bracket on Sylvaneth, which is quite fascinating, especially with the tools that they have as an army. Then you've got Daughters of Khaine at 6.5% of the meta, which I'm not surprised to see that. Skaven at 5.8% of the meta, which could explain why their win rate is lower than I expected it to be. Maybe it should be higher. Maybe it should be higher. Mega King Nurgle at 5.5% of the meta, and so they're a popular army and they're doing very well. That's a real good sign that that army's that is too good. Seraphon at exactly the same place, so 5.5% of the meta, but both of them 56% win rates. So I think both those need addressing, like a balance patch. Deepkin 4.7% and Ironjawz 4.6%. Soulblight Gravelords 3.7. At one point they were 9% of the meta, so they've dropped in popularity immensely. Fyreslayer's up to 3.5% of the meta. That's great. I think a lot of people are really excited that you can run a bunch of Magmadroth armies and run around, which is really cool. Sons of Behemoth down from where they once were at 10% popularity, but 3.4%. And then it continues down. In fact, the exciting bit is actually that Gits are being played more. 2.9% of the meta, because at one point they were down to like under 1% of the meta, but they're now at 3% of the meta, which is great, but they're still the worst performing army, which is sad. There we go. Incarnate, Purple Sun Blood need a nerf. Oberon Crawlboys need a fix. They do. Yes, that's true. Okay, so good. So that's the kind of meta representation at the minute. With obviously new Lumineth coming out. New Lumineth's coming out soon, and new Tzeentch, new Ogres, new Suns. So lots to talk about there. Let's just take a moment to look at Sylvaneth, because Sylvaneth is kind of interesting to me. Nighthaunt and Sylvaneth are one of those two armies that I want to take a look at kind of over times. So you can see they're almost in unison, both in win rate. As you can see, so like there is a 4% difference, so it's not exactly the same. So there's a 4% difference between the two, and then their meta representation is both equally the same. So again, when a book releases, you see a big spike. So what I expect to see is when these 4 new books come out over the next few months, I expect to see some other armies take a massive dip, basically. Tzeentch and LRL books are in summer. Okay, so sure. Give Obi the ability to stack command abilities. Yeah, that's true. And of course, if you would like to look at any of this, I'll include it in the show notes, but if you'd like to look at any of this information, it's all available thanks to Ziggy and Rob in the over on the Honest Wargamer on the stats tab. So you can check this all out. So conclusions. What do I think about it? Oh, it's positive win rate potentials. Let's talk about that a little bit. Seraphon, 69% still. So this means how likely you are to go 3-2 at an event, so have a positive win rate. Sons of Behemoth, also 67%. And Bone Splitters, Beasts of Chaos, and Big War all in the 60% range, which is quite nice. Urshiart Bone Reapers, Gits, and Crawlboys have a 28% chance to have a positive win rate potential. So that's kind of like fun. Anyone wants to challenge themselves, pick up Flesh Eater Courts, Crawlboys, Goonswag Gits, or Bone Reapers, and just be like, I need to go 3-2. If you do that, then you're doing great. Okay? Okay. Right, not yet, but it has the cards. Anyway, so pretty fun stuff. Pretty fun stuff looking at the stats. I'm pretty happy with it so far. Like I personally am very happy. This is a good stat as well. The overall win rate by opponent tier. So as you can see, some armies push some other armies down. So Blades of Khorne doing really well into the top meta rate. 58% Blades of Khorne. Hilarious. I guess, are they all magic heavy? Combat? Flies. They do great into flies because flies zone into your territory and then they get slapped back. They do great into gargants because gargants get beat up by them. Okay, interesting. Do great in Beasts of Chaos? Interesting. Yeah. They're good into gargants and Nurgle. They have infinite output with Scarbrand. Yeah, that's what I was. That's just what I said. KO are good into the middle, and then Legion of the First Prince, as always, good into the bottom. Really interesting. Yeah, it's that counterpunch army. Like Ironjawz is just going to run at you, and then Scarbrand's going to eat all the Ironjawz up, right? Not that they're top, right? Legion of the First Prince, 11% into the top. All right, so those are the stats. Go check them all out on the Honest Wargamer stats page. Thanks to Ziggy and Rob for putting all the stats together. It's those two who produce the stats. Rob does all the inputting. Ziggy creates the graphs and makes it all look really nice and great. You can both check them also out on the AOS Stats Center. I'm just the front. I'm the host. I give my informed, if not crazy-eyed opinion on some of these pieces of information, so I hope you enjoyed it. And then now let's look at the event results. Okay, the first event we're going to look at is my event. I normally put my events at the end, so screw you. So, like, I held an event this weekend. We had 10 players play, 5 rounds of competitive Age of Sigmar 2,000 points. There was some great people there, and it was won by Russell, who ended up going 4-1. Owen Jackson in second place with Ironbark. How did he do it? Dom in there as well, with not playing Trogs, and now playing Stormcast. Liz Truss turned up, super happy about that. Luke, Dan, Luke Willoughby, Luke Skelton, who I forgot to mention, did end up going 5-0 at another event, he was telling me, and I just glossed over his list. So now he's playing Maggotkin, so well done to him. Luke Willoughby with a beautiful Sons of Behemoth army, and shout out to Leighton, who was there with Idoneth Deepkin, whose turtle got put in the sun. Benjamin with his Legion of the First Prince, who's like a commission painter and a real nice fella. So like a bunch of great people. Dan, Jimmy, just really lovely people. So what did Russell run? Well, Russell, also known as Elven Painter on Twitter, was running Seraphon with his Thunder Lizard. Now, he said that this is the last time he's going to play Seraphon, and he's a Daughters of Khaine player at heart, so he's going back to Daughters of Khaine, because he said he's just bored of playing it. He's got an Engine of the Gods, Saurus Astaroth Bannerbearer, Skink Priest, Lord Croak, Skink Star Priest, 5 Saurus Guard, 2x5 Saurus Knights, and 2 Bastiladons with Solar Engine, Chronomantic Cogs, the Umbral Spell Portal. So, yes, I've talked about lists like this very similarly, so, for years now, actually for 2 years, but real quick, Engine of the Gods is an incredible fighting piece with Beastmaster and Prime Warbeast. It can have so many attacks, look it up, it's incredibly worth looking at. Incandescent Retrosis means if you kill it on a 4+, it comes back to life with D3 wounds. No, sorry, wrong. With, hold on, full wounds, complete, like all their wounds.
And he's become a massive prick.
He's also a priest, so he can do Curse, as you can see there, which on a 4-up, a unit in 9 inches, any 6s hit, cause a mortal wound on it. And you can also, if you put it near you can roll 3d6 or 4d6 if you're near a slant. You can do mortal wounds in AoE, heal, or even summon more Saurus, right? And in Thunder Lizard, you're -1 damage to a minimum of 1. If you fight anything that is a Stegodon, like the Engine of the Gods, the Saurus Guard, or the Saurus Knights, right? 4+ bring on the engine is wild. Honestly, cannot watch that roll. Yeah, it's crazy good. Owen in the chat with some stats. The Engine of the Gods can very comfortably do 20 to 30 damage a turn in combat. It's amazing, and all of that for 265 points. What keyword does it have? Just really good keyword. Astaroth Bannerbearer gives +1 to cast and also extends the spell range of casters within some range. I don't know, 12 inches, 9 inches, who cares? And Lord Croak is a 4-cast wizard who can do Comet's Call, which is a D3 or D6 units board wide, can take D3 mortal wounds. As well as being able to cast Mystic Shield, cast Endless Spells, and most importantly, be able to do his AoE spell, which can do flat 3 mortal wounds or D3 mortal wounds to up to D3 units. Up to 3 units, and he can cast that 3 times. So it's incredibly powerful. Plus summoning from the engine, so it's worth even more. Yes, yes, and you can summon from the engine as well. You can summon 10 Saurus Warriors a turn, basically. Lord Croak, 430 points, and he can shrug off all wounds if you don't kill him. He's kind of got like a reverse incarnate rule, so if you do enough damage to him, he doesn't die, and then he heals all those wounds, so you can't really chip damage him to death as well. Whereas Comet's Call definitely can chip damage the opponent. Skink Star Priest can also buff these units. And he's got Hand of Glory, which is really important because it allows you to reroll 1s to hit on certain units, which means the Engine of the Gods is even more fighty. Saurus Knights reduce damage down by 1, and they're a castle. They're a really nice little castle piece because they're a cavalry brace, so you just screen them out 5 wide. You do that with 2 units of 5. You can cover a huge space of the board, and then 2 Bastiladons with Solar Engine with those 1-up armor saves, and their shooting attack, which also, with reroll 1s to cast, are even more effective at shooting at range. So it's a castle that's just going to keep shooting you and doing damage in the midboard, summoning more units, and then just chipping you down with mortal wounds and output, which is really good. Umbral Spell Portal to be able to do spells at range, so 18 inches, and then Chronomantic Cogs to reroll casts. So Russell's been pushing this around a lot. Russell also very well informed. Like every time I spoke to him yesterday, he knew win rates for armies. He knew how different players were performing around the world. He's running the LGT, which is going to be an Age of Sigmar event that's in 2 weeks. So he's really up to date with all the information available to him. So it's really nice getting to talk to him in person as opposed to reading his tweets. That's a joke. Because he was absolutely on fire. Like he was really well informed. So it was really great getting to talk to him. So congratulations to him. And he should be. Port will be the D3 or Horde Clearer. Yeah, of course. There's also a Horde Clearing spell which Croak knows, so he can also deal with like Nighthaunt. Croak's great. He's like just a great piece. Croak is everything Gobsprack should be, basically. Yeah, so think about that. Hello, Age of Something in the chat. Hope you're well. One of my favourite YouTubers, if you want to go check it out. Okay, looking at our next event, we travel over to Australia. That's right, and we're going for the Bathurst or Bathurst GT over in Australia, and it was won, and our only 5-0 was Mr. Dalton Copeland from Measured Gaming, who have a YouTube channel if you want to go check it out, and he's got Bone Splitter's Icebone army. Okay, in his list he had a Wargog Prophet, who was the general with the Master of Magic command trait. The artifact was Mork's Bony Bits, and his universal spell law was Levitate, and he was bonded to a Crunchmine Incarnate, which means there's obviously one in the list as well. He's then got another Wargog Prophet, 2 War Dogs, 3 units of Savage Boar Boys, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of Savage Big Stabbers, and then 2 units of Savage Boar Boy Maniacs. Let's just make this a bit bigger so maybe people can read it on the screen. And then the Incarnate as well. So his battalions were Bounty Hunters, Warlord, and Battle Regiment. And his Bounty Hunters were the Savage Boar Boy Maniacs. So what he's looking to do there is move his army forward, because Bone Splitters get a pre-game move, and then he's looking to pin your army back with his units of Savage Boar Boys, and his Boar Boy Maniacs can fight quite nicely. They've got a lot of attacks, especially when they're damage doing to Gallivets, and then his Savage Big Boy Stabbers are looking to do loads and loads of damage in melee and when they die. The main trick for this is, though, is if you ever try and fight into the army at the back of the board, then the Wargog Prophets are going to do their Wargog Stare, which is where they basically get to do D3 mortal wounds, and they get to keep rolling a dice, and then keep doing those mortal wounds, and then do a phenomenal amount of mortal wounds at range, especially when they're also able to give themselves a 2-up ward save at one point during the game, which is on the glowing tattoos. So I think the glowing tattoos gives you a 4-up ward save, and then once per battle you can add +2 to your ward saves, or it adds 2 to your ward saves and you can go to a 4-up ward save. Whichever way round it does, you end up on a 2-up ward save. So that Wargog Prophet, that one turn, is going to be able to give you crazy output and basically delete whole bits in the game. Really fun, really interesting. A valid army, 55% win rate now. So this is Australia, Europe, and America now are pushing forward these Bone Splitter lists and doing some really interesting stuff with it, and taking a lot of damage. That Incarnate obviously going to be pretty key. You can't retreat from the Incarnate, which is again really nice to be able to just put into the midboard. So your opponent, when they charge in, they do all the glowy tattoos. They do all the Wargog Stares, and they do a bunch of mortal wounds. So really exciting to see that play out. Looking at the 4-1s, some pretty exciting stuff. We had a couple of people flew over from Perth, which is the other side of the continent, to go play at this event. So Terence Vola was running a Sons of Behemoth list, and he was running Kragnos, 2 Great Breakers, and a Little. Arguably one of the most fun armies that you can play at the moment. I really do think that, going 4-1 is a really good result with that army. I think you keep doing that. You've got to paint up 4 models, and you just run around being a menace. That's all you are. You're a menace. You're a wide-eyed, probably just wearing a singlet and a pair of jangles with maybe one of those hats that's got 2 beer cans in and a little bit of something you can just you can just drink drinks out of, so just fantastic. So shout out to Terence. Sam Bradbury was running a Lumineth Realmlords list. I really like this list actually, but it'll go away soon. So Scenari Cathalar and a Venari Lord Regent, then 3 lots of 10 Wardens, so those kind of fighting spearmen at the front, which are great in combat, amazing. That's going to be 20 attacks to do mortals on 5s. Then he's got 30 and then 20 Sentinels, so he's going to shoot really well at range. But like breaking out of that castle, he's got 2 units of Venari Dawn Riders, both of which are in Bounty Hunters, which are amazing into infantry anyway. Dawn Rider's got a special attack called Unfed Furrows, or just Furrows, or whatever it's called. Basically, you get extra attacks if you're going into 1 wound infantry, which Galician veterans oftentimes are. And so actually, the incredibly fast Venari Dawn Riders in Bounty Hunters makes them crazy good. 12 hours total travel, crazy. And then he's got a unit of Venari Blade Lords, and then Chronomantic Cog, so he can reroll casts. Don't forget, all of the Lumineth Realmlords units are wizards, so reroll casts on all of those wizards is great, because it means they're more likely to be able to get off their Sunblessed weapons. So just a really fun list. Jared Baker was running a Daughters Khaine list, and again, it was kind of like a little bit different to what we often see. He had a Hag Queen on Cauldron of Blood and a Bloodrat Medusa. He allied in the Battle Mage, which is +2 to move, +2 to charge for a spell, and then he's got a unit of 10 Bow Snakes, then 2 units of 10 Fighty Snakes, 2 units of 10 Witch Elves, and then 2 units of 5 Heart Raiders with Chronomantic Cogs and Heart of Fury. So Cogs really good for reroll casts, obviously, and Heart of Fury is -1 damage to a minimum of 1, which makes this more melee-centered army really good at being able to stand around in a fight. So yeah, just very strong. And I think he's also got the Zealous Orator, which pretty certain he's got a 4-up rally as well in his army as well. Then you had Jacob Strachan was running a pretty cool Disciples of Tzeentch list, which I quite liked. So he had Kairos and a Lord of Change, meaning he's got 5 casts. He's got the Blue Scribes as well, which means he can reroll all of his casts in range of them. These are all going to be inside Host Arcanum, and then a Gaunt Summoner of Tzeentch. Gaunt Summoner of Tzeentch is not something you see very often, but Gaunt Summoner's got a really cool ability where you can summon 5 pinks from his War Scroll, which is quite cool, because that does end up being 25 wounds that you can summon onto an objective. Gaunt Summoner as well has also got the artifact, the Fang Circlet, meaning they can summon once per battle, summon a unit of 6 Screamers of Tzeentch. So then you've got like a lot of wounds being summoned from this one character on the board, which I think is quite fun. And it's also a really fast character, which is really good when you want to zip across the board and summon units. And you're going to be able to generate a lot of summoning points because you've got a lot of casts that re-roll into cast. Then he's got 1, 2, 3 units, he's got 2 units of 10 and a unit of 20 Carrick Acolytes, and then also another unit of 10 Screamers of Tzeentch. And then he's got Purple Sun, Ravanax Gnashing Jaws, and Quicksilver Swords, right? So yeah, just really good. And then we also have being run by Alex Bradbury is running Maggotkin of Nurgle, and he's got the Befouling Host, a Great and Clean one, Orgot's Demon Spew, and he's got 2 lots of 10 Plague Bearers in Unmatched Conquerors, so they're going to count as 30 on an objective, and they're 20 wounds apiece. Then he's got 5 Putrid Blight Kings and 2 Pusgoyle Blight Lords, 2 units of 2 Pusgoyle Blight Lords in Bounty Hunters, so they're great bounty hunter options, and then 2 units of 2 units of 3 Nurglings, which are great for battle tactics, bounty hunters and expert conquerors battalions. Like, just great, just a great list, and nice and different as well. I think Nurgle's probably one of the stronger books in the game right now. And so that's everything that's happening at our Australian event, which was the Barhurst GT. Congratulations to everyone who did really well. Hope you had a lovely time, and can't wait to see more Aussie results in the future. Okay, so our next event is the Smite Club Open I've already forgotten. It's not in a castle or in Arizona. It might be in Arizona. I think it was in Arizona, with our winner and I think TSN rankings champion Tom Guan in the 5-0. Also a co-host of the TSN. And we'll talk about his list in a minute. And then Colt with Flesh Eater Courts in a 4-1. Cameron with his Sylvaneth in a 4-1. Aaron with his Cruel Boys in a 4-1. No with his Lumineth in a 4-1. And Gregory Brewer and the Nuge with both going 4-1 as well. And Kyle Caleb going 4-1. Christina and Christian Castro going 4-1. Oh my God, there were 48 people at this event. So we'll deep dive those lists now. The first one we're going to look at, obviously, is Tom's list, and he was running a Hallowheart Cities of Sigmar list. This means you get to add an additional d6 to your casting, but you've got to take d6 mortal wounds in return. So if I take 3 mortal wounds, I get +3 to cast, which is really good, and that's for all wizards within X range. I can't remember what it is, and it doesn't really matter. So he's decided to take a Battle Mage on Griffin, and he's bonded that to Kronspine Incarnate of Gur. Now he's taken Elemental Cyclone and Warding Brand, which are two, Warding Brand's a really good spell that you cast on a unit, and any time they take a wound on a 4-up, you take a mortal wound in return. This is obviously phenomenal to do on an Incarnate, because an Incarnate can take an infinite amount of wounds. Because it doesn't have a wound cap. It kind of counts as having 18 wounds, but doesn't really. Basically, what happens at the end of the battle shot phase, you count up how many wounds it takes, then you roll 3d6, and if you roll under how many wounds it's taken, then it drops a level. But it can take an infinite amount of damage. So what you do is you yeet the Kronspine Incarnate into the enemy, and you let them just do 1 billion damage to you, and then every 4+ they take a mortal wound in return, which is crazy clever. He's also got a Soul Screen Bridge for teleporting units across the board. Specifically, his 2 units of 10 Free Guild Crossbowmen, which are really good at the moment. Like, really good. I don't think I've been talking enough about how good Free Guild Crossbowmen are, but they're great. They're a great unit, which is kind of like, they're Reavers, if you play Idoneth Deepkin. They are Blissbarb Archers, if you play whatever they're called, Heathen Knights of Slanesh. However, they're great. They're just great. They're a great union. Really good. Really good. Then he's got a Free Guild General with the Arcane Tome and a Battle Mage as well. And they've got Ignite Weapons, which is +1 to wound. And he's got Sear Wounds, which is heal d6, and then the Warding Brand. And then he's got himself the Incarnate, which I talked about, and the Purple Sun, Ravanax Gnashing Jaws. And with that many pluses to cast, you're going to be able to really dominate the magic phase. And then he's got 10 Protectors. 10 Protectors, and they're really good as well, because they start up with 3-up save, but then they get +1 to save in combat, so it's going to be a 2-up armor save. With a Mystic Shield, it's a 1-up armor save. With all that defense, it's a 0-up armor save, so they can ignore like Rend 3, Rend 2, Rend 3, I think. But they've got 51 attacks in combat, and then with +1 to wound via Ignite Weapons, and then +1 to hit with 3-inch range? 3-inch range weapons. Those things will mess stuff up, especially when you put the Purple Sun nearby, so that they're -1 to their save, so then they're going to be Rend 2 with 51 attacks, 2s and 2s. But he put it all in a battle regiment so he could go first, and basically just yeet at the enemy. So that's Tom's list, and Tom's been playing a lot of Warhammer, and unsurprising, he's doing really well in the rankings at the moment. Okay, so like here is a great example of why Age of Sigmar is currently in a really great place. Let's quickly go through it. So you've got Colt Hegard with a Flesh Eater Courts army going 4-1, Flesh Eater Courts. Cameron with Sylvaneth going 4-1. Aaron with Cruel Boys of all things, going 4-1. Also, Aaron is a complete stallion. Like, if there was ever a poster child for what Age of Sigmar should look like, it's fucking Aaron. Noah Quino, Lumineth Realm Lords. Gregory Brewer with Bone Splitters. Matt the Nugent, with his Beast of Chaos. Fucking Nuge. Let's go. Kyle Callip with Nighthaunt, and then Christian Castro with his Stormcast Eternals. Like, I didn't repeat an army there in those 4-1s, and the winner, so our 5-0, was also like Cities of Sigmar. It's great. Like, such a variety. And all of those lists, like, maybe we've seen them before a little bit, but, like, just, it's in a really great place. I'm super happy where it's at. Okay, just looking at some of the lists. The Nighthaunt list had Kurdos, a Krulgas Cruciator, Night Strides on the Ethereal Steed, Guardian Souls, another Krulgas Cruciator. So it's going to be 2 -1s to a minimum of 1. So if you've got any damage to your weapons, they're down to 1. A Spirit Torment. Then he's got 2 units of 3 Spirit Hosts, 20 Chain Rasps, 2 Chain Gas, a Corpse Cart, 2 units of 4 Banshees, and then 10 Blade Geist Revenants. So he's got a lot of MSU there for the charges to reduce your saves and all the other stuff that you have in the game. Spirit Hosts are really interesting because you're going to need them because you've got loads of additional characters. Specifically, the Kurdos is going to be doing some pretty good fighting. The Crusaders are pretty nice as well as little duelist characters. So congrats on the 4-1. Stormcast Eternals is a nice mix. Guard of Steel Soul, a Lord Relictor. So Guardless is going to be given a 5-up ward out, which is really strong, especially on Stormcast characters. A Lord Imperator, then a unit of Vanquishers, which is crazy to see them. A unit of 10 Judicators with Botstorm Crossbows, which is a lot of DACA, especially good into Nighthaunt, and a unit of Vindicators. Then he's got a unit of Annihilators with Meteoric Grandhammers, which are great and going to combo with the Lord Imperator really well for those drop charges and doing all the mortal wounds on the charge. Unit of Stormdrake Guard, which are fast, do mortal wounds and are great in a fight. Then a unit of 3 Vanguard Raptors with long strike crossbows and a unit of Aether Wings as well. It hasn't said whether or not he's taken any holy commands, but I assume he's taken shoot twice, right? Which is really, really good. The Flesh-Eating Courts list, which is great to see them. They've got a really low win rate at the minute, so you should be super happy with this. Is an Abhorrent Art Regent for the D3 extra attack spell on Abhorrent Ghoul King on Royal Terrorgeist, which is loads and loads and loads of output, especially with that Gruesome Bite reroll. So you get D3 extra attacks and you reroll the to hits, looking for any 6s to hit, doing flat 6 mortal wounds, which is just an amazing amount of output. And then a Crypt Haunter Courtier. A unit of 6 Crypt Horrors, another unit of, why are there different points? A unit of 3 Crypt Horrors, then 2 units of 10 Crypt Ghouls, and then a Cronspine Incarnate of Gur, and then the Purple Sun and the in his list as well. So he's got some, because the Abhorrent Art Regent is a 2-cast wizard like a Lord of Change, literally the same. 245 points for one, 400 points for the other, literally the same. Okay, our Sylvaneth list is Warsong Rev and a Tree Lord Ancient. The Warsong Rev's got Spellsinger. This command trait's pretty important on what you generally tend to see in the army and how it's going to play. This means in Gnarlroot he's going to get an additional 3d6 to cast, or he gets reroll his cast, one of those two. I can't remember, but it's the casting version basically. And then he's got the Purple Sun and the Spite Swarm Hive. That Spite Swarm Hive gives you +3 to your charge, maybe also +3 to your move as well. Then he's got 2 units of Tree Revenants, great for barge to enemy lines as a battle tactic because they're Galician veterans, so he's going to get 3 points for that instead of 2, which is really, really good. A unit of 10 Dryads, then a unit of 6 Spite Rider Lancers, a unit of Revenant Seekers, and a unit of Gossamer Archers. What's really interesting about this is absolutely no Kurnoth Hunters. So they've got very fast mobile units, which have the same wounds cap, because they've got 5 wounds like Kurnoth Hunters, but they play a slightly different job. And that Gossamer Archer unit is very expensive, but really interesting for screening and move blocking, very much like you used to see the Foxes for Lumineth Overlords do. Then you got Uruk Warclan's Cruel Boys. Oh boy. Breaker Boss on Mireboot Troggoth, a great fighting duelist character. Killer Boss on Corpse Ripper Vulture, who's the general, with super sneaky in the Arcane Tome, and he's got the spell Nasty Hex. That Arcane Tome really good on the Killer Boss on Corpse Ripper Vulture. Then he's got a unit of 9 Bolt Boys, another unit of 9 Bolt Boys. These are all battle line because he's in Big Yellows, and then another unit of 3 Bolt Boys. Then he's got the Cronspine Incarnate of Gur, and then he's got 4 units of Hobgrot Slitters. So those are 80 points for screens, which he's going to really want to screen out his Bolt Boys. He doesn't want them to be hit at range. The Incarnate's obviously going to go off and fight, and the Breaker Boss on My Brute Troggoth's going to go and fight as well. So he's kind of got it's a great list to go for one, because number one, I didn't even expect Cruel Boys to be able to go for one. So great work from him going for one with this list, and then also, is this the 4-1 list that is needed to push Cruel Boys out there? Is this the list? Is this the cookie cutter list that you need to go 4-1? I don't know, but absolutely congratulations to Aaron. That's great work. Our Lumineth Overlords list was a Scenari Cathalar, an Enlightener, and a Lord Regent, with 2 units of 10 Wardens, a unit of Blade Lords, and then 50 Sentinels, and some Stone Guard. So congratulations on doing really well there, especially with the Stone Guard inclusion. That's cute. I assume the Stone Guard are trying to interact with the Cathalar. Interesting, especially with Total Eclipse for a Bravery debuff. It's pretty fun. Our Bone Splitters list was in Dragfoot, so no ward saves, and it had 2 Wurgog Prophets, with a similar loadout to what we saw previously when we were talking about in the Savage Orc Big Boss. A unit of 10 Savage Orcs, a unit of 10 more boys, another unit of 10 more boys, and then just a shit ton of stabbers. Just a shit ton of stabbers. Loads of stabbers. And then our BC Chaos list, run by the Nuge himself, was 2 Dragon Ogre Shaggoths, a Slave Startness Demon Prince, who's got a command ability that anyone within 18 inches, or enemy unit within 18 inches, has to half their charge move, which is great. So if you're ever outside of 6 inches from the enemy, you can't charge them unless you've got any bonuses to charge. And then a Zangor Shaman, then a unit of 3 Dragon Ogres, 6 Dragon Ogres, and 10 Gore. 2 units of 10 Gore, a unit of 10 Ungore, and then the Wildfire Taurus, Chronomantic Hogs, Ravening Direflock as spells, and then 6 Bulgor, which is great, and then 6 Zangor Enlightened on Disc of Tzeentch. So love that. Bulgor rarely taken in competitive lists that do well, which is really fun, and a load of endless spells. So it looks like a really fun event. The Smite Club Open. I'm glad everyone had a great time. Congratulations, and well done to everyone who did really well. Okay, at Renegade Wargaming, Autumn Assault, we had 30 players playing? No, not even that many. We had 20 players playing at this event, and where Skaventide ended up taking out the event going 4-0, but no 5-0s. So going 4-1, sorry. His Skaventide list was Thankwaller, Warlock Engineer, and a Gracier. Then he had 2 lots of 20 clan rats, and then a unit of 6 Storm Fiends. And then he took a unit of 3 Jezzails, 2 Rattling Guns, and a Warp Grinder with Purple Sun, and also Laquan. So Laquan able to move the name of his move Thanquol, Move Thanquol into the middle of the board, do some magic, do some stuff, cast a Purple Sun, all that other jazz. Warlock Jezzail is great for picking off characters at the back of the board. Just imagine there are 120 points for effectively long strikes. And then our Storm Fiends for doing all the power with more and more warp power. So yeah, really good, and actually really impressive to see Skaven go 4-0 or even 5-0, but this is 4-1, right? We had a Gargant's list do really well with a Gatebreaker, and a Cronspine Incarnate. Great list, really fun, love that. We had a Stormcast Eternals list with Gardas, a Knight Draconis, 2 lots of 5 Judicators, 4 Stormdrake Guard, and 4 Fulminators. So this Fulminator's incredible output. Don't forget, we used to get bonus points for killing Fulminators, and they took that away, and they didn't actually change how good the Fulminators were. So amazing stuff. And then the Dracothian Guard, so that's Fulminators, just amazing output, especially if they're in Bounty Hunters, which they are. They'll delete almost anything. Stormdrake Guard, the same. And the Judicators are fine as well. Guard has given everyone a 5-up ward save, which is really good. And then our other Stormcast list was a Knight Draconis and an Incanter for the Auto Unbind and Celestial Blades, which gives +1 to wound. And then 3 lots of 2 Stormdrake Guard and 2 lots of 3 Vanguard Raptors with Long Strike Crossbows, all in a battle reg with the Purple Sun. So really, really good. Like, it's just like the old version of the list. Lots of long range shooting, doing lots of damage, and the Stormdrake Guard doing really well. So I'm not surprised to see that list do really well, and congratulations to everyone. Okay, at Renegade Wargaming, Autumn Assault, we had 30 players playing? No, not even that many. We had 20 players playing at this event, and where Skaventide ended up taking out the event going 4-0, but no 5-0s. So going 4-1, sorry. His Skaventide list was Thankwaller, Warlock Engineer, and a Gracier. Then he had 2 lots of 20 clan rats, and then a unit of 6 Storm Fiends. And then he took a unit of 3 Jezzails, 2 Rattling Guns, and a Warp Grinder with Purple Sun, and also Laquan. So Laquan able to move the name of his move Thanquol, Move Thanquol into the middle of the board, do some magic, do some stuff, cast a Purple Sun, all that other jazz. Warlock Jezzail is great for picking off characters at the back of the board. Just imagine there are 120 points for effectively long strikes. And then our Storm Fiends for doing all the power with more and more warp power. So yeah, really good, and actually really impressive to see Skaven go 4-0 or even 5-0, but this is 4-1, right? We had a Gargant's list do really well with a Gatebreaker, and a Cronspine Incarnate. Great list, really fun, love that. We had a Stormcast Eternals list with Gardas, a Knight Draconis, 2 lots of 5 Judicators, 4 Stormdrake Guard, and 4 Fulminators. So this Fulminator's incredible output. Don't forget, we used to get bonus points for killing Fulminators, and they took that away, and they didn't actually change how good the Fulminators were. So amazing stuff. And then the Dracothian Guard, so that's Fulminators, just amazing output, especially if they're in Bounty Hunters, which they are. They'll delete almost anything. Stormdrake Guard, the same. And the adjudicators are fine as well. Garda's given everyone a 5-up ward save, which is really good. And then our other Stormcast list was a Knight Draconis and an Incanter for the Auto Unbind and Celestial Blades, which gives +1 to wound. And then 3 lots of 2 Stormdrake Guard and 2 lots of 3 Vanguard Raptors with long strike crossbows, all in a battle reg with the Purple Sun. So really, really good. Like, it's just like the old version of the list. Lots of long range shooting, doing lots of damage, and the Stormdrake Guard doing really well. So I'm not surprised to see that list do really well, and congratulations to everyone. Okay, to wrap the show up, let's have a look at the player rankings from around the world. So, at the moment, looking at the TSN rankings, Tom Guan is currently leading. He's got the person with 6 GTs in. He's got 616 points in the tank with 6 GTs. The only person with 6 GTs. So he's leading there. But he has got 1 5-0 and 3 4-1s already. So he might already be tough to catch up with. Alexander Gonzalez has been to 4 events as well. He's got himself 3 4-1s. He's in second place. Jeremy Vissier has got 3 5-0s from 3 events. 430 points. Incredible stuff. So those are all 3 Americans currently leading the world as the best performing players in the world. Adam Mumford from the UK, first in there with 4 GTs, 1 5-0 and 1 4-1. Is our first English player. Carl from Canada, so Carl Ong, has got himself 1 5-0, that was at Summer Slaughter, and then 2 4-1s, having only attended 3 GTs. Mike Wilding from the UK has got himself 2 4-1s, having attended 5 GTs already. Kieran Alander in 7th place with 1 4-1, having attended 5 GTs. Hazel Moon with 4 GTs and 2 4-1s in 8th place. Matt Beasley, I think, over from, in the US, with 3 4-1s from 3 events. And then Thomas Bell with 5 events and then 1 4-1. Just taking a moment very quickly to look in the UK. The top 3 in the UK, we've got Adam Mumford, Michael Wilding, and Kieran Alinda. If we take a moment to look at North America, which won't be a surprise to anyone, you've got Tom Guan, Alexander Gonzalez, and Jeremy Vissier. If we take a moment to look at the UK and Scandinavia, we've got Benjamin Flodder, Theo Papakristodula, and Lassie Kalberg are in the top 3. And then if we go over to Oceania, which is like Australia and New Zealand, then Alexander Cron, Lackey, and Lenny Bell are in the top 3. So congratulations to everyone there. So another great weekend of games. I just can't say it enough. My only takeaway at the moment is Age of Sigmar is in an incredible place. List diversity is massive. List win diversity is huge. There is always bad internal balance in these books, but the game itself is massive. The population of people attending events is growing. The number of people attending events is growing. The number of events is growing. It's just all up at the moment. Age of Sigmar stonks is really, really high. And as a takeaway, you can't really argue with that. Like, what a great place for a game to be in at the moment. That the win rates are good for most factions. It's pretty broad. There's more and more people attending events. If I was in Age of Sigmar, I'd be hyped right now. Like, I'd feel like, I mean, I am in Age of Sigmar, but as people in the community for Age of Sigmar, I would just think, what a great place. So, we should all celebrate that, because there's been times when it's rubbish. So let's celebrate the times when it's good. Loads of love. Thanks for listening to the show. If you do like it, do like, comment, subscribe. Share it with your friends is the best thing you can do to help the show. Because lots of people don't really hear about some of these lists or the information, and I think I try really hard to deliver good information every week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye.